Welcome to Workplace Psychology with Dr. Martha Greidick. I'm Dr. Martha Greidick. This podcast examines a wide variety of work-related issues through the lens of industrial and organizational psychology. And while many of the topics discussed here may be seen as intended for white-collar employees and their employers, in reality, the ideas presented here are applicable across organizations and industries. Additionally, many of the topics discussed here may be applicable outside of the workplace. I encourage you to examine what's presented here, apply what makes sense to you, and simply discard the rest. Bringing new talent into an organization can be an exciting time for both the organization and, of course, for the new employee. But it can also be a time that's exciting, busy, and maybe even confusing or overwhelming sometimes. That's why onboarding is such an important process, not only for the organization, but even more so for the individual joining the company, the organization. While proper onboarding done well comes with many benefits, both for the organization and the employee, in short, we can say that proper onboarding sets the employee up for success into the future. One of the most obvious parts of proper and successful onboarding, of course, is the orientation process. That's when the company and the individual employee get to know each other and get to a point where there's an understanding of what goes on and what is to be expected on both sides. But all too often, this is where many organizations end their onboarding process. Unfortunately, many believe that that's all there is to proper onboarding. But in reality, that's just the beginning. That's just the tip of the iceberg. So while orientation, especially a well-designed and a well-executed orientation, is critical, it cannot be the only thing that's part of the onboarding process. Once the new employee is part of the organization, they know the ropes, they know the basics, they understand what is expected of them and what they can and should expect of the organization and their colleagues, there comes the next step, which doesn't have to be a step that is delayed by any means. But what we're talking about here is proper mentorship. Mentorship within an organization can be tremendously beneficial, especially for new hires, new talent that joins the team. And while there is plenty of evidence suggesting that mentorship can be beneficial for many, many years to come, throughout one's career really, it can be particularly valuable and, frankly, critical during those first several months of a person starting a new job, starting with a new company. This is where many organizations fail to provide proper mentorship to the new hire. While some people may be inspired to seek out their own mentors, that may be a little more difficult when somebody is new to an organization. This is where the organization has the responsibility and, of course, the opportunity to have a mentorship program in place. And a well-designed, well-executed mentorship program will go beyond the initial mentorship that would be a part of onboarding when a person joins an organization. A well-designed and a well-executed mentorship program would then take mentorship to the next level, where a person who has been within a company for a while would continue to have a mentor and whose mentors may change as their needs for mentorship changes. In addition to making sure that people have proper mentorship at an organization, the company also has the responsibility of being able to provide an opportunity for individuals to be mentors to others. So as you can see, mentorship is a tremendous part of a successful experience at work. And while a new employee may benefit most from having a mentor as they begin with their new employer, their mentorship needs will likely change going into the future. They may benefit from having new and different mentors, but they may also benefit from mentoring others themselves. And of course, ongoing training is tremendously important when it comes to setting employees up for success. Many organizations know and understand that, and therefore provide training to a new employee. However, far too often, training fizzles out and seems to fade away from a daily reality of that workplace experience. A good training program is one that doesn't end once somebody is no longer considered to be a new employee, but rather allows every employee, regardless of how long they've been with the organization, to grow, learn, and progress within the company and within their own career. Now that we know the three major components of a properly designed and hopefully properly executed onboarding process, let's talk about what could go wrong. Well, beyond the fact that if these three components are missing or are not executed properly, there may be some other things that could potentially get in the way of the new employee's success as they join the company. One of the more common things that people encounter is being overloaded with information. The companies are oftentimes pressured to bring new employees on board and get them up and running, if you will, as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, that kind of pressure, along with a time crunch, can result in providing too much information too quickly, making it difficult to assimilate and apply the new skills and knowledge in a way that allows for success. So companies will do well when reviewing their onboarding practices to make sure that information as it is presented to their new employees is done so at a proper pace. There can also be the flip side of that coin where onboarding takes too long. It happens too slow, and that can result in a completely different issue for the new employee. They may find themselves bored and even unchallenged at this new job, and potentially may find themselves looking for a different role with a different company. Lack of support can be another common problem when we review onboarding practices within organizations. Along with that can come lack of follow-up. Those two can be a big problem for new employees. It's great to have proper onboarding practices on paper, but it's a whole other thing to actually implement these onboarding practices in such ways that they truly set the new employee up for success. This is where ongoing support and follow-up are critical. While your onboarding process as an organization may seem stellar and have a good success rate, each individual deserves an onboarding process that works for them in the best way possible. This is where support and follow-up come into the picture. How do you know as an organization if your onboarding process is a good one and if your efforts are yielding the kinds of results that you are expecting? Well, it's not difficult to find out. Feedback and metrics. Organizations absolutely have to take the responsibility of measuring their efforts and understanding how well they are doing with their onboarding programs. Ask the new employee, ask those working with your new employee, and ask their direct supervisor how the new employee is doing. Look at the quality of their work, of their output. These are things that can actually be measured, so there is no excuse for not being aware of how well your onboarding process is actually working. Don't be afraid of what you might find out, but rather see it as an opportunity as an organization to improve your onboarding process and potentially tailor what you already have in place to an individual. Onboarding is an important part of bringing new employees into an organization. It's an opportunity to set them up for success. But of course, with it comes certain responsibilities, both on the organization's part mainly, but also on the new individuals, new employees' part as well. Open communications are key. And if an employer potentially thinks that they don't have the time to put together and implement a good onboarding program, think of it in the following terms. Someone at your company has to take the time to sift through potentially hundreds of applications or resumes only to bring in that one person to fill in the position. After all that time and effort, it absolutely makes sense that the onboarding process is such that the new employee succeeds. As this episode comes to an end, let's review what was discussed. Onboarding is an important part of bringing new employees, new talent into an organization. Unfortunately, all too often, onboarding falls short of what it should and could be. The three main components of well-designed and well-executed onboarding programs include orientation, mentorship, and ongoing training. It's important to have the proper support and follow-up, but it's equally as important not to overload new employees with too much information too quickly. An organization will do well to seek out feedback both from the new employee and from those working with the new employee. And of course, metrics, measuring the new employee's performance, can be critical in understanding how the onboarding process may affect the new employee's potential for success. And while onboarding is largely the responsibility of the organization, employees are encouraged to speak up and provide feedback. This is where open and honest communications can be absolutely critical. As the week unfolds, I encourage you to review the onboarding process within your organization. This is especially important for those in HR, those in leadership and management positions, and of course, business owners. After all the effort that you put into bringing that special person, that special individual into your organization, you owe it to yourself, the organization, and the other employees to set the new employee up for success. A good orientation process that is designed and implemented properly can make or break your potential for success in terms of how well your new employee does within your company. For those of you who experience this podcast in an audio-only version, I encourage you to check out my YouTube channel, Stress Free with Dr. G, where you can find the video version of the podcast. In addition to the video version of the podcast, my YouTube channel also contains videos that focus on stress management. So I encourage you to check out Stress Free with Dr. G on YouTube. The link for that is in the description below. Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe to this podcast. I look forward to seeing you here again next time. Until then, I wish you joy and well-being.